This movie is on Excel's Spellchecker. There are a lot of options with Spellchecker. You can ignore the current instance of the misspelling or ignore all of those instances on the worksheet or the selected range. You can add the word to a custom dictionary so that Spellchecker won't call it out in the future. You can change the instance of the misspelling, or you can change every instance within the range or the worksheet. You can undo the last change that you've made. You can add the corrected spelling to the autocorrect list. We're going to find out how to access our custom dictionary, and we'll take a look at some other options with the Spellchecker. I have a little schedule set up with all the Spellcheck options so we can quickly go through and demonstrate how Spellchecker works. Spellchecker, in its scope, when you kick it off, will check the entire worksheet if you only have one cell selected. But if you have a range selected, like this, it'll only select that range. That's what we're going to do because we want to handle each one of these pieces individually. The Spellchecker is located on the Review tab, over to the left, Spelling. The first thing it does is find the first misspelled word in the range or on the worksheet, starting from the top, working its way down. It's found H-A-V. That's not a word. It suggests the spelling H-A-V-E. I can ignore one instance of the word and go to the second one, or go to the third one. So that's an option. I'll escape out of that, select the next range. I can ignore all of them and just complete Spellcheck and have Spellcheck accept the misspelling HAV within the worksheet, or in this case, the range that's selected. I'll go to the next one, Spellcheck. I can add this one to a dictionary. And the dictionary that you're adding these misspelled words to, and it could be a legitimate misspelling, of course. Somebody could have a name that's spelled a certain way that Spellcheck will call out as a misspelled word. You can add it to this dictionary, which is a custom dictionary that we can gain access to in the options section, which we'll see later on. So I'm going to add that to the dictionary. Since I only had one cell selected, C17, Excel defaulted to check the entire worksheet. Checking from top to bottom or from left to right, it moved over to E17, found another misspelled word. When I say ignore once, I get a message from Excel, do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet? You'll always see this when Spellcheck gets to the bottom of the sheet. If it hasn't yet checked the range above the range it already has checked, in this case, it's only checked E17. It's asking me, do I want it to start at the beginning of the sheet again? I'm going to say no because I actually don't want that to happen. So since I added HAV to the dictionary, Spellcheck won't call that out anymore as a misspelling. The spelling check is complete for the selected cells. I'm going to left-click OK. So knowing that, I had to choose another word. So selecting my new range and left-clicking the Spellchecker, I have a list of suggestions, the first one starting with the word cave. I'll change CAV to CAVE. And when I do that, the Undo Last button is now an option I can select, so I can undo that. Pretty straightforward. And I can change it back. On the second instance of CAV, maybe I meant to type CAB. And I can change that. So I can change each one of these misspellings in the range or on the worksheet independent of the other change that I've already made. I can undo it, as we saw, or I can change all of the misspellings within the range at the same time. Left-clicking OK. I can also add the misspelling to autocorrect. And before I add it, I want to show you that it's not there in the first place. Alt-F-T to get to the Excel Options dialog box. It's in Proofing, Autocorrect Options, REG is not on the list. I'll cancel out of that. And I'm going to put it on the list by using Spellchecker. REG, I'm going to make RAG. Left-click Autocorrect. Do I want to continue at the beginning of the sheet again? I'm at the bottom. No. Alt-F-T. Proofing, pulling up Autocorrect again. REG is now RAG. I've added the spelling correction to autocorrect, so the next time I type REG, Autocorrect will step in and change it to RAG and prevent me from ever making this spelling error again. Now, I mentioned the dictionary, the custom dictionary that we can add words to, and I'm going to change this to something else because at this point we have all correctly spelled words as far as autocorrect is concerned on the worksheet. I'm just going to put FWI, no, that's not a word. Select spell check and left-click Options. This is the proofing section that we were in when we went to look at the autocorrect settings. We can get to the autocorrect settings this way. We have a number of spelling options when correcting spelling in Microsoft Office programs. We could ignore words in uppercase, ignore words that contain numbers, ignore internet files and addresses, flag repeated words. So if you put and in a sentence, it'll call up the second instance of the word and. Those are all selected by default. There's some setting that has to do with the French language. We can have it make suggestions from the main dictionary only and bypass the custom dictionary. Edit word list. All of these words were in my loaded version of Excel with the exception of the one that we added, which was HAV. We did that earlier in the movie, so HAV is now a legitimate word, at least as far as autocorrect goes, unless I delete it, which is what I'm going to do. So we can get to the word list this way that's contained within our custom dictionary that we can build using autocorrect. The other option to note here is the dictionary reference that we can select, and there's all kinds of languages. The US version of English is what I need. I need it a lot, actually. So I'm going to leave it at that. So that's Excel's spell checker. We can determine the scope of the spell checker by selecting a cell, in which case the scope will be the entire worksheet, or we can select a range to work in. We can have the spell checker ignore the word, one instance of the word, and individually go through each one of them. We can ignore all of them as a group, whatever misspelling it has called up or flagged. We can add the misspelling to a custom dictionary so that the spell checker won't call it out again. We can individually change each instance of the misspelling within the range or the worksheet. We can undo the last change that we made if we've made a change. We can change all of the misspellings for a particular called out misspelling, again within the range that we're working in or the entire worksheet. And we can add the misspelling to our autocorrect list so that the next time we type that sequence of letters, autocorrect will step in, convert it to the correct spelled word, and prevent us from actually entering the misspelled word in the worksheet in the first place.